Welcome to the Pastor and Postmaster podcast. What you wanted to hear in the sermon, but you didn't.
Where the Academy meets every day.
Hi.
But this is an unusual day. This is not a normal day.
It's an unusual day, and as we are mourning the death of Charlie Kirk, and we are talking about him today, recognizing a type of martyrdom. Is it political? Is it because of the Christian faith? Is there a fusion of those two? That will we discuss. But now, why has that had such an impact on us? But Bo, maybe you could share first kind of your reflections.
Yeah, I was tethered to some work I was doing at the desk, and so I had to monitor the situation from start to finish over a period of about 3 days. So I went through the whole cycle of Charlie Kirk's been shot, me thinking he's been wounded. We got a pulse. No, he's dead. And all that went along with that. So
yeah,
everybody's responses.
I know for us as well. For me, it's like, I couldn't believe, Kyla did texted me and called me and told me that that happened. I thought, okay, wounded. Surely they got better security, so it wasn't like a close up. And so just shocking. And then it really had a greater impact on me in the next coming days. I was at a Ukrainian church helping teach some younger people, Generation Z. It made me think a lot about that age group, and so it was tough.
That's wild.
I came home and I was like in tears, talking to my wife, and she's like, "Well, why does that impact on you?" I was like, "Janae, like I talk to people preaching. I am the father, and I'm 9 years older than him, but man, it was tough." I don't any reflections from you, Brody?
Yeah. When I found out Charlie Kirk got shot, because I watch the news kind of as I work throughout the day. Not that I'm a junkie or anything, but, you kind of had that same thought back to when President Trump, in the attempt assassination, and when you saw him got shot and you saw them rush him out, and their team was very responsive, but it's just kind of, you had that hope in the back of your mind.
Right.
And kind of as things unfolded over the next couple of days, obviously they weren't able to save him. But I think one of the things that really stuck out to me is when information about the shooter came out, we started to see the trans ideology, the mainstream left ideology as presented by the shooter. Mm-hmm. It became something that was no longer the fringe. The young man who did this, raised by
allegedly
did this, but that he was raised by a Mormon family, a good, relatively good, wholesome Mormon family. I mean, he was living with a trans furry identifying person, and they apparently were lovers. Everything is allegedly, and just kind of that has been a lot of the messaging that's been pushed. We've seen it with if you don't transition your kids, something bad gonna happen to them. We've seen the ideology. This needs to be in schools. This needs to be mainstream, where they centered the fringe to the middle of the political discourse, and now we're seeing what that ideology looks like in fruition.
Yeah, absolutely. And so much. We'll discuss a little bit of that as we continue on this podcast. I mean, Kyla, what about your reflections?
Yeah, from a wife and a mother.
Yeah,
well, it just struck me as, first of all, unbelievable. I thought it was a joke because I saw it on my feed. And I was like 30 minutes from it happening. I think it was 26 minutes or something that it had taken place. And I was like, and then I saw the bullet go through the neck. I mean, not through, actually. His neck stopped, which we find out later. His neck stopped, 30-06 bullet. There's no exit wound. Literally, he was in that good a shape that his neck, allegedly, stopped the bullet and didn't go further harming people behind him. Isn't that insane?
I did not know that.
So, but anyway, none of us did at the moment, but I thought, my goodness, like, this can't be real. I immediately thought, no way. Because, I follow him. I follow him every day. And in fact, one of my favorite things that he says is, "Buckle up, everybody, here we go." And I was like, that's a good one. We should have used that. No, I'm just kidding. It's his thing. But I thought that was clever. Anyway.
We always used it.
We said it first. No, I'm kidding. I'm just joking. It was super shocking, and I felt sick in my stomach. And yeah, that was like my first. And then of course, after staring at the TV for a little bit, because I ran over to my friend Amanda's house, we both were like, there's no way you survive a 30 or whatever that was, that high impact. At the time we were like high impact rifle, long gun or whatever. There's no way you survive that. It was like, it was awful. And I can't unsee it. And I think it really bothered me. I really think it really.
It should.
It
should.
That's appropriate.
And that's part of it. The tragedy. He was doing what he was known for doing, what he loved doing
Yeah.
in a public
Civil
place
discourse.
with scores of thousands of people. I don't know how many were exactly at the Utah Valley State. What he did many times, and vulnerable, not battling. But just his character made a huge difference. I mean, that's part of the reason I think why it is so difficult and has had an impact on so much of us is that he was a genuinely nice guy.
Yeah.
He would engage with his opponents respectfully. And by the way, this is not like you could just go online and look.
I know.
Yeah.
And watch the whole clip.
Yeah.
Guys.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of deception out there. I mean, people
Totally.
have AI generated videos where he's saying things that he's not saying,
my
and
gosh.
or they
No.
take like a 5-minute long discussion conversation and they just break it down into like 3 or 4 seconds. Even
attention
is
span.
chopped up.
Right.
Yeah, I know it's the lies. I mean, I followed him. I wouldn't say religiously, no pun intended, but. But I was definitely well aware, and I watched a lot of his long form interviews and the discussions he had, and just the immense amount of lying, and it's on record. You
it
can
is on
believe your
record.
lying eyes. It's wild.
I think what ended up putting him up to the top for me was when he announced that he was going to be on the cartoon South Park, and I was like, I didn't know the velocity of
popularity.
people that were listening to him. I thought, just like, probably just a normal amount of people. No, this was like his, he made it to the top, so to
he's
speak.
arrived.
He drew thousands of people.
Yeah, they actually took that episode down now because I think they felt pretty bad.
But
Although
he had that as his avatar on X. I mean,
He was a good sport about it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I learned a lot from his attitude.
Yeah.
And that's
I
the thing,
did.
that's the thing about him is and that's kind of Rush Limbaugh statement. I'm not conflating anything particular, but that idea of happy warrior and conservatism that is joyful and not venomous and resentful as one side is typically.
And
The right side-
I'm not a fanboy of Milo Yiannopoulos, but he,
I don't think. Yeah.
but when someone speaks truth, he said, "You killed the nice guy. Now
Yeah.
you get me."
That's what I heard
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I was like,
Well,
You know, and,
Going back to that.
and the highlight on that is he was the nice guy, and except for some cranks out there, he's universally seen as a moderate.
He's not.
Oh yeah. But he had such an ability to be able to get the person to see from the other side,
Right.
whether they're conservative or left leaning, right leaning. It didn't matter. He would ask questions almost at a genius level that were so simple anyone could understand them, but they still got you to go, maybe these people are human after all, whether there was left or right.
He said most of them they were laughing.
Yeah, and he had a great sense of humor. People, I mean, all the clips they're showing, they're great clips that are the ones that are actually real, but it's really doesn't do a good job of showing his humor and how funny he actually was.
It's amazing how people in debates lose their humor. I think it's always important to keep it not in a reverent or flippant way, but be able to laugh at yourself. And
Totally.
And in the vein of Socrates in the West, he asked questions, and that's a threat.
Oh yeah,
Because truth is.
So would you say that he was skilled? One of my maxims is that people learn things and they retain them if they discover it for themselves.
Yes.
Did he help, do you think, these students discover the truth
Absolutely.
for themselves?
He did well, and also, I mean, having this discussion, in social media with someone that I grew up with, but the idea that there's a divide here. Charlie represents the Western tradition, the Christian tradition, that truth is objective and can be discovered through revelation or through right reason. And the left basically believes it's socially constructed, is relative, and essentially is whoever has power decides who uses the language.
And through catechism
Yeah.
on the left.
Yes.
In a negative way.
Yes.
Yeah.
yeah.
So the fact that Charlie was able to be persuasive proved his point more than anybody else, that people, if you allow him to
Right.
speak.
Well, one of the things that I really learned from him is that the left ideology derives their morality from a cause, where a lot of the right, their morality is derived ultimately from God, the Western civilization, and the morals that are imposed by Christian tradition or Christian faith in the scriptures.
Sure.
And so to them, because the cause is the ultimate source of morality, that they can do whatever is necessary, whatever they think is right in order to meet that end, to meet that cause. And so when we see people celebrating, and it's horrific, you know, and I wonder if the South Park was more out of respect for Charlie or just fear of retribution.
Right.
Because they just signed that
Makes you wonder.
massive hundreds of millions of dollar deal to redo South Park.
But remember, he in that episode, Charlie lampoons the girl about abortion.
Yeah.
Yep.
And one of the funny things, I was talking to someone and I go to seminary with our church, and some of you guys would know him, but he mentions how that there's Charlie would get these like just incredible, intuitively just clever arguments. And so he asked a girl about abortion. It's just a fetus. He goes, okay, let me ask you a question. When the baby's going to be born, do you have a fetus shower or a baby shower? And it was so low hanging fruit that they overlooked it. And it was like the laughter. It was a good point.
Yeah, and it made people like me able to understand, like, oh, this makes complete logical sense, and you can't argue with that.
Yep.
You can't argue with it, and that made them so mad.
But what would you say to those who say he's a fascist?
Sorry.
And we are obviously by virtue.
Are we talking about a dictionary definition of fascist, or historical fascism? Or are we talking about
Interesting that
tarring
fascists.
someone with a label that has nothing to do with who the person is?
Well, what would be the I guess you'd say the traditional? Let's start. What's original fascism? That loosely.
Well, the government controls production and
Speech.
It's a nationalist movement.
Omen like the German Socialist Party.
Yeah.
all those people. Those who shall
Interesting
not
that
be named.
fascist Charlie would give the mic to someone and openly debate them.
And that's the fundamental thing that people are absolutely just disingenuous to say this. Fascism is fundamentally anti-free speech. It's statist. It's socialist.
Anti-gun rights, anti-self-defense.
Yeah, it's not. It's like the opposite of the American
Complete opposite.
Constitution.
But Kyla, she distills it down. No fascist is going to let anybody come with unscripted questions to a microphone, being recorded.
Oh, by the way, and some of them were
broadcasted
like,
live.
hold on, pulling up their questions and their arguments. So
But I mean unscripted. Like
I know, for him,
like
huh?
Charlie doesn't know what's coming.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like no fascist is going to do.
And
That.
by the way,
Totally.
what did the fascists do? Brown shirts in Nazi Germany, 1920s.
Oh my
communists.
gosh.
Kill people and break things.
Kill people, break things. So how many people have killed things and broken things since September 10th?
Ooh. Let's think about. Let's
Well,
go back.
well,
and
commercial break.
Wait,
Yeah.
hold it. I'll go to MSNBC. Well, they will find the exception, and that will be the rule.
oh yeah.
They will find somebody beating up,
Yeah.
Is that straw man? Is that another straw man?
Well, no, I mean,
Kind of.
we the response to this needs to be measured, especially by those of us who share the same faith as Charlie. And like there was a man who had a sign that said Charlie deserved it, and a bunch of people got around him, picked him up, and they threw him in a fountain.
Whoa.
As hilarious as that is, I am not condoning violence. Do not react. And I think that was one of the things about Charlie, and even President Trump commented about this at the funeral yesterday, where he was like, I can't love my enemies. And Charlie would not agree with that. I mean, that's such an
Right.
amazing...
You would have thought Trump would have somehow taken advantage of that and said Charlie would have agreed with me.
Right.
Right.
He said
If he was a
Charlie.
narcissist.
Well, and that speaks to Charlie and Erica's testimony so much. Like, she didn't have to go
Earlier
back
time.
out there. She didn't have to go. So we're fast forwarding to the memorial, but she didn't have to go out there and hug him after, like, because there were some cringy moments where I'm like, President Trump, like, come back, But I appreciate his non-scripted realness, and I appreciated Vance's realness. I appreciated everybody's realness, and I think that was Charlie. He knows humanity is flawed. Himself being the first and foremost, he would say, of sinners, I'm sure. But he still had dialogue with them. He didn't throw them under the bus. He didn't say, we're no longer working for that guy. He didn't pick on them. He had grace, and her grace last night by giving him a hug after his speech, because it, could have been better. But she loved on him, and I loved that.
Every member of the cabinet was allowed to speak.
Yeah.
So I heard different presentations of the gospel or a vision for the future. very inconsistent fascist message. As a supposed fascist, I'm confused.
I'm so confused.
A
Are we
parent
off track?
Is it
By the way, are
Tulsi-
we off track?
Is it
We're
Tulsi
good. Okay, good.
Gabbard's a vision for America?
Oh, yeah.
Or is it Jack Posobiec?
Oh,
Or is
totally.
it
Or is
Stephen
it-
Miller's?
Yeah. Or
Oh,
what
oh
about
my
Pete
gosh.
Higgs?
Yeah. Hegseth.
And
That
that is worthy of another podcast too, because you do get
Sorry.
Yeah.
conflicting things. You get the forgiveness, you get the no forgiveness. So, Bo, we were talking a little bit about the accusation that Charlie Kirk's a fascist, and which essentially implies that we all are as well. And you mentioned kind of the traditional definition, And what is the one that the person who isn't sympathetic to Charlie, will say it nicely, thinks that he's a fascist?
He's a nationalist who wants to impose his will on the nation. He wants to control industry. He wants to. A fascist will impose censorship, no firearms. A fascist in the United States is going to suspend the Constitution.
That is a key
totally.
critical point.
So it's going to be different than an Italian fascist or a German fascist.
So
You
German.
do have a German last name.
This is one of our
So,
German
so
fascists.
that label then is
How do you
incredibly
do?
it's incredibly disingenuous, and it's ridiculous. I mean, there is no fascist movement I can imagine that would have things happening like with Charlie Kirk. Prove me wrong. How do they prove you? How does a fascist prove you wrong?
At gunpoint.
Or with brass knuckles?
Yes.
Yeah.
Brown shirts.
Yep. So that's the thing about it, is like that accusation label is completely bogus, and the only thing people say is, well, he was just waiting for the moment to finally impose
There we go.
false consciousness.
Yes.
False consciousness.
Well, how about the idea that he was? I mean, he started for political reasons. TPUSA is a political organization.
Still.
It still is. And how does his death impact the political discourse? So that's one of the things that we really need to kind of think about. Is obviously he was a Christian man, and he was a good Christian man, and I think we'll probably talk about that a little bit later. But in terms of his political ideology, regardless of what you thought about it, he had that open discourse with that political ideology, and that is what was so threatening.
Mm-hmm.
A fascist does not like to talk. They don't want to have a conversation. They like to tell you.
Because that validates the opposition, or
Yeah.
potentially persuades the audience.
Right.
And could this leak into can we ask that question in light of both politics and church or theology? You know what I mean? Because I heard a clip today, and maybe this is totally non-related, but it was Forrest Frank, and he was talking about, be careful now as we're going forward. Be careful that you really lean into God's word. Obviously, we're not arguing with this. This is I'm just asking. He said, because there's going to be a lot of false things coming out now. There's going to be a lot of discord on who the true Jesus is. And I was like, oh boy, this totally
Yeah.
could, he said the water's going to get murky. And I probably would agree, but
Well,
Depends on what church you go to.
Well, and that was, I went looking for the transcript. I went looking for the recording. But the first question Charlie Kirk received that day, he would be murdered during the second question. The first question was somebody was trying to bring the differences between Mormonism and evangelical Christianity into the conversation and kind of, trip him up.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that goes to that, what you're asking. I think.
Doesn't Glenn Beck
Okay.
have something to say about
Yeah.
that? Brody?
Yeah, I heard Glenn Beck talking about this, and he was saying the only two martyrs in American history on American ground is Joseph Smith and Charlie Kirk.
False.
False.
Charlie or Joseph?
Joseph
This is
Smith-
exactly what Forrest Frank, I think, was probably, I don't know, maybe he was
yeah,
talking about.
And,
stuff
we
like
can
that.
we can
Yeah.
throw a bone to both sides on this.
Sure.
Joseph Smith was murdered. He was murdered
lynch mob.
while held in jail. In the old days, jails weren't necessarily they didn't have cells with bars on them. He was being held upstairs in this building with I think 3 of his compatriots, and somebody had smuggled in a 6-shooter, a little Derringer type 6-shooter. So when the mob came up to murder him,
True.
before he was going to be tried for busting up the printing press at the Nauvoo Expositor, the opposing newspaper. So he violated the First Amendment of the
I didn't
of this
know that
newspaper. Yeah, so he was going to go on trial, and things were just starting to unravel in his world, Joseph Smith's world. So the mob came through the door. John Taylor and others were parrying off their guns. Joseph shot, I think, 3 shots and 3 misfired.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and
Was he blind?
No, 3 of them misfired.
Oh, 3 misfires.
And they're
Oh, I
coming through
thought.
the door.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then
No dig on blind people.
he went to the window, and most people, I think the consensus is that he was giving the Masonic signal.
Interesting.
Yeah, to spare his life. And he kind of got blown got blown into the window from outside and blown out from the inside, fell down. Because people were shooting at him from all directions. And they dragged him over and set him up against a well and executed him.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so he was killed in a shootout.
So just on the seemingly external conditions, but that makes a question of what's a martyr.
Oh, yeah.
That is a good question, because he was killed because these people, they had just had some sort of big issue earlier over free speech, and another printing press had been destroyed. So the Missourians weren't having it a second time.
How interesting, the free speech element in Joseph Smith.
Yeah.
He was trying to stop it.
Yes.
But Glenn, obviously, he's a Mormon. So,
Right.
Well, what about a martyr? What a martyr? This is a question some people would say, to even question this would be anathema. It would be, So, Brody, what's your thoughts about what makes a martyr?
Well, I was reading Fox's book on martyrdom, and
1563 is when that book.
15, yes, and it's an interesting record of the martyrdom in Christianity, because as has been pointed out by church fathers, that the church is built on the blood of the martyrs. And so I think it's a begs the question of what would be considered. And you have people like Fox, who wrote this book in the 1500s, 1600s, and he talks about martyrs as just someone having a contrary opinion on religious beliefs, and it doesn't matter who does it.
And we looked at it before we came on this. He has Constantine and Martin Luther.
Yeah.
But we usually think of martyrs as those who've died. Comes from a Greek word meaning witness. Stephen's the first martyr in the book of Acts. We have so you get the idea that a martyr is someone who dies for their faith. That's kind of our intuitive.
Right.
But apparently they don't have to die, according to Fox.
No, and there's always some element of recanting or abandoning the faith and staying strong or courageous and seeing your faith through.
Polycarp.
Yeah, Polycarp.
You have a chance to save your life.
Right.
But that was not what happened to Charlie.
No. I think one of the things that blurs the line on whether he's a political martyr or a Christian martyr is that he, people want to place him above where he was, but he was just, he wasn't in a clergy, he wasn't a priest, he wasn't a pastor. He was just a good Christian man. And he exemplified the standard that all Christian men should strive to be. Not saying he wasn't special in terms of the fact that he actually lived it out. Not saying he had sin. We all have sin. It's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that he strived to live that Christian standard day in and day out. I talked about how Erica talked about how Charlie wrote her a note every what was it, Saturday, Sunday? Every Saturday. And I think instead of putting Charlie on an unattainable pedestal, we should be approaching this as he is the standard at which Christian men
Should strive.
And that is really what hit for me. So earlier, Ryan asked the question, how kind of affected you? Well, one of the biggest main things that affected me is that there are so many striking similarities between Charlie and my husband, minus the fact that my husband doesn't go out on debates, but he lives out like a Christian man. And I'm not just being biased because he's my husband. I literally think he has lived up to he's just a man. He's a good Christian example. And so, he's got a wife and kids, and that really just, that hit for me, that hit in a new kind of way. But yeah, Ben would write me, he writes every morning, notes to encourage me. He's inspired by Charlie actually to continue on, because that's not just something that husbands just do, because it takes time, it takes intention, and here this guy is just asking how he can serve her better. I think that all of that just like wrecked me, because I'm like, A, that's just like my sweet husband to do things like that. And I was like, that's so cool. And B, it is a challenge for us wives to, if we want a Charlie, well, then we need to be an Erica. Like we need to be loving him well. And so that's that came later. Those thoughts came later. About just exemplary men, but my husband immediately came to my mind. He just looks wise, tall and skinny, and curly hair and everything. But I just thought, gosh, that really hit me.
So the question we're looking at too, and trying to really, that was the beginning of our episode here, the debate, the hook, whatever you want to say. Was it a political or was it a religious assassination? Bo, you have a quote here, of course, about that. If it was either, some people have opined.
Yeah, so Jonathan Karl with MSNBC said this was not a political act, the assassination. And that brought me back to what we were talking about Christian martyrs with the Thomas Jefferson quote. The tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants. So in the political realm, we have martyrs, right? We have this category of martyrs.
Well, Van Jones, he also said it was an act of love for his roommate.
I know, I heard that.
What?
Yeah.
Insane.
That it wasn't political, that it was an act of love, to kind of go along the same vein that you're talking about.
Right.
To defend that. Yeah.
Not necessarily defend, but to explain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
The problem too with us, the blending of this is that, Carl Trueman points this out in his book, The Rise and Triumph of the Modern Self, that there isn't any, especially the farther left you go, there's no what he calls pre-political discourse. So everything is politicized. So the idea that, you are thinking about trans identity, and that biologically that's not even a closed case based on just common sense and the consent of every human being that's lived, it's become then political because it has to be constructed socially.
Yeah.
And that's the only way it can be upheld. That would make sense why there's such an attack. Is that political? Is it anti-metaphysical?
Well, there's both a religious and a natural way of looking at the issue with the trans ideology, whether it's someone who is deeply embedded in it and has gone through the transition, or someone who just supports it and is, for lack of a better term, an admirer of it. Like this alleged young man who was living with a trans-identifying furry who had some grotesque addictions. We'll leave it there.
Yeah, look it up.
Yeah, and so but we have started seeing a lot of political pushback, not necessarily from Christianity, although it is the root of the source of why it is in Western civilization, why it is considered wrong. But the cause that they're pushing back is not because of Christianity. Does that make sense? And so that's what is making this so difficult to parse, is that the Christian values and ethics that Charlie exuded was what informed his political discourse, and why it would not be, politically advantageous or culturally advantageous, let alone societal, as we go into birth decline, to not have these type of ideologies that essentially, will eliminate our society.
So would it be safe to say, like J.K. Rowling, she's concerned for her security.
Right.
She's not a
Yep.
Christian.
Yeah,
So-
good question.
Someone threw her on a target list. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
She's been on it for a long time.
yeah.
Well, the conservatives have been on the target list for years. For almost 10 plus years, anyone who has been conservative, it has been, the political violence being, threatened to them is just become normal because they find loopholes around it. It's a comedian, or if someone only said
Well-
one thing, or
And just today,
Or they never acted on it, they just threatened it.
just today, well, I think it was yesterday, we heard about this a wedding reception
Yes.
where someone
Gosh.
was killed in New Hampshire. Free Palestine,
Yep.
right?
right.
So is this going to happen once a week?
Right.
Yeah, the question with the religion and the blending of that, and the reason I bring this up is because many Christians would maybe instinctively say he is a Christian martyr. Why?
Well, back to Brody's thesis is you have a good Christian man who his vocation happens to be politics and organizing. Mm-hmm. I was thinking about this the other day. Like somebody could say that for 39 and a half years, I was a Christian nationalist. I went back and looked at the oath I took as a postmaster, and I'll never forget the day I took it because I didn't know I was going to take one. Mm-hmm. And when they administered the oath, I almost broke out laughing because I swore that I would uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Yeah. And my mind immediately pictured me with a AR-15 behind the counter shooting.
Oh my gosh!
The enemies of
the state. Yeah,
because you work for the state.
Yeah, right? And so I go, let me see. So wow. I've sworn an oath to a nation, so I'm a nationalist now, right? And I'm a Christian.
Yeah, if you take Luther's two kingdoms, you're part of the kingdom of heaven, and you're part of this kingdom, and
so I was both.
And so was Charlie.
Yeah.
Can I say, so trans ideology was really and that's crazy because he was shot answering that question. But trans ideology, let's just take that one because he was martyred basically. I would say he was shot because of his, right? We can say it's pretty safe to say he's probably shot and killed because the guy didn't like his ideologies, his hateful ideology as concerning trans rights and trans whatever. So if you take just that, trans ideology touches biblical reason and theology, doctrine, it touches all. It now has entered into the church as a problem because that goes against the core of human history.
And man and woman.
Yes, man and woman, Genesis. So, I mean, it's riddled in the Bible. So now you're coming into our realm because, and I heard this wonderful quote, I sent it to you guys, I think, but it was, the church didn't become more political. Politics have now entered into the church via these things like trans, you're defining life, when life begins. All of this stuff is not because we went looking for it. They're literally attacking us. And so for me, one could probably say he was martyred for his religious beliefs, but I think it's kind of a both and kind of thing.
I've heard this quite a bit from a few pastors, and they're talking about, the whole Plymouth Rock you didn't land on Plymouth Rock landed on us type mentality. And so
I haven't heard that one.
Yeah, but the idea that the church and politics were separate, even though we had that desire from our Constitution, that's never true. I mean, when Kennedy was elected, it was a huge...
No Catholics.
Yeah. And
1960.
No Catholics allowed.
Yeah, you go back even further, and the politics has always used faith as a means to exploit those who are not willing to do the research themselves, or not willing to educate themselves. I don't want to say people that are not smart, because we have busy lives. We have to feed our families. We have to work. We have a lot of stuff going on. Mm-hmm. Most people don't have the news ticker feeding next to their office day in, day out. They just don't have stuff. Yeah, they don't have the capacity in order to do that. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of reject that, because we had blasphemy laws for almost 200 years.
I'm sorry, what were you rejecting?
The premise that the politics has now entered into the church. And, we had blasphemy laws. We had state-sponsored religion. We had certain states that were considered to have religious affiliations, especially during the formation of the United States, the original 13 colonies. We had colonies that were, in fact, religious colonies. And, what's the quote that the Republic is made for?
Religious Moral People by John Adams.
Right. Mm-hmm. And
not for any other, he said.
Not for any other. And I think the real challenge is that we have let multiple religious ideologies come into our politics and into our faith. And we see this shown throughout, look at Minnesota right now with the Islamists. Mm-hmm. Look at, a lot of California with this this leftist ideology is a religion. They have
That's a good point. Yeah.
rituals. They have, tenets. There's initiation. They have belief structures. It is
Liturgical
a religion.
calendar.
You have a liturgical calendar. I mean, you have Pride Month, and you have
And Charlie transgressed their temple by coming into it. He trespassed into their temple.
yeah.
And the
Why
academia.
would someone say that politics, that church hasn't? And when did this become a thing where it's like, oh yeah, church is being more political? When did that become? When did that?
When they started paying attention.
start coming around.
Yeah, when people started paying attention to how the different ideologies were enacting as pseudo religions and how it was affecting their own populace and their churches, then they weren't able to stick their head in the sand anymore.
Mm-hmm. And part of it has to do too with, you realize that, so conservatism, I don't want to, and this is why we brought up fascism is ridiculous, because fascism is statist and it's nationalist and it is totalizing. Every part of your life revolves around it. With like Nazi Germany, there's no Boy Scouts. Everything is through the state, and the same is true in communist countries. So in those particular political philosophies, everything like is touched by the state. In America, it's supposed to be like where there are religious, moral people that can serve in their government, but there's a distinction between that. But with the left, there's no distinction. Any kind of distinction, whether it's in the form of homeschooling, whether it's the form of free speech, is a threat to the progressive vision of the state. Mm-hmm. This goes back forever. Go back to Plato's Republic. I mean, where you have kids that are not even raised by their parents; they're taken away and raised in these communities.
That's why in the discussion of Christianity in evangelical Christian circles, are we too political? Are we not political enough? This is never going to end. So we need to have that sort of, since we're talking about Charlie Kirk, we have to have that willingness to dialogue,
Yes.
and feel like we can talk about it without.
Yeah, and I appreciate my pastor because he did touch on it, which was important to me. It really was. It meant a lot to me because I do personally see him as a nowadays Stephen. And I feel very.
Who's
I don't,
that?
and I'm not Stephen. I don't feel bad. I think we can all have our opinions about whether he was or wasn't or whatever. But I think it's important to notice to read the room and say, here's culture currently. And what can I shepherd as an angel of our church at Bellevue Baptist? How are you going to shepherd us, Ryan? And you do. And I appreciate that Ryan doesn't go and harp on us every week on what's in the news. Okay. And then he harps on it. But he does eloquently go verse by verse. And this is I'm just saying, if you're not in a church, it's hard. Then maybe hop on and listen to our the sermons. I don't know, but my thing is that I really appreciate that I have a pastor who is not afraid to say and bring up transhumanism in a sermon, and not live and die on that hill. And like we're going to continue moving on with scriptures, but you touch on it, and it's really important for people like me who are just wondering how to think about all of this. Where's the church? And that is why, folks, it's important that we be unified.
Okay.
Again, around the gospel, period.
So here we are. You guys are Baptist. People would say I'm Baptist
A heretic.
adjacent.
Just kidding.
Or I'm an ally.
Baptistly adjacent.
But,
That's awesome.
But wouldn't it be true that all four of us are two kingdom? Are we all two kingdom?
Yeah.
For the most part, yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's harder for us to work through these things.
That's a great way to put it.
Like if you're
It's harder for us.
Yeah. If you're Reformed or like Roman Catholics, they're pretty much, they have this all-encompassing view of everything. So I think it's harder for us, and so I think it's good to give one another grace.
Yeah.
And to be real honest, emotionally speaking, or within Christian circles, I find it really emotionally difficult. Because we're put on the spot because we think that there's the kingdom of heaven, we think there's the kingdom of this world, and Revelation 13, the kingdom of our God has become the kingdom of the world. Now, in all millennials still say that's already started, right? Post-millennials.
Semantics.
For them, there's no tension if somebody's too political.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm sure they have those fights.
It's a good point, Bo.
But for us, it's more difficult.
And is
that's
this an appropriate time to sort of talk about the memorial? Because I did see JD Vance get up, and that was really encouraging. We watched it together. It was really encouraging how he admitted his flaws and his sins. Basically, he basically confessed that I have been not as bold as I should be, and it's in the gospel that he wasn't bold enough, and not like whatever political subject you want to pick any of them.
Yeah, he said he had talked more about the gospel in the last 2 weeks.
And
publicly.
the gospel is offensive in that it touches all, and it touches politics. It just does, because politics affect people, right? Which is what we're doing.
But
This is what we're doing.
I also think we don't need to make the gospel any more offensive than it already is.
Yes.
And I'd say that, but the gospel is offensive because you
The
go
scripture
to
says that.
Yeah. You go to people who are told that they're good people, no sin, no nothing. They just have the wrong situation, the wrong living environment. Some tyrant did this to them, and you go to them and said, no, we are all fallen, sinful creatures who need Christ. That is offensive to them. It goes against everything in their own religious and political beliefs.
The entire memorial would have been offensive.
Yeah.
Well, and that's again that memorial. If you listen to the individual speeches, like so many people spoke,
A lot of people spoke.
it was not a fascist
No.
presentation of the gospel because, like somebody pointed out, and it's true.
Yeah.
We know who Tulsi Gabbard is.
Right.
She's a Hindu. She's married, and she's openly Hindu. And somebody said it was a good speech, but it was obviously a Chat GPT Christian.
Oh,
it's
snap.
so
address,
funny.
Really?
And I'm not.
Oh,
Not literally, but a type of.
Yeah.
There's a type
And
of
so,
detachedness.
I didn't hear that one.
and like as a two kingdom type person, I'm watching this, and I know history. I'm not real happy, about
Right.
some of this
Yeah.
stuff. It causes tension.
Totally will. Yeah.
But at the same time, I heard very clear gospel,
Amen.
substitutionary atonement,
Resurrection,
and
forgiveness.
Christian living, a la James. Like faith
Right.
without works is dead.
Right.
So it's kind of weird that with all these different traditions being represented, you get a pretty full view of.
Right. And it was really clarifying to me, Bo, because I had a friend go to the memorial, and I was checking in on her. How's it going? I'm super jealous. But anyway, I asked her what was the moment that really spoke to her. And she was, you could have picked any political figure to talk about. You could have picked any of them and said, I liked this or that about him. But she was like, the moment we all just burst out into spontaneous worship was the most effective thing that ever, the whole thing. She said she can't forget it. It changed her. And that's what we saw last night. We are changed. I for one have been changed. I told you guys this, and then I sinned completely and instantly. But I will say I have learned to be more compassionate towards people, like to strive to be better, to understand the people I disagree with a little better. And that's kind of it's what has just moved so many people. The grace to forgive a murder of your husband. You took away their daddy. He's now absent. And thank you, right? That's great. That's why we're all so mad about it. But she came out and forgave him and then hugged Donald Trump at the end. And I was like, so much grace is happening right now.
Yeah, so
much grace.
I have a question about that for the professor and his student. His protege.
That's right, the protege.
I'm serious.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Sink down. You can't go. I'll
Sink
find
down.
you.
Sink down.
Yes, sir. What can I do for you?
so with Erica forgiving the young man who murdered her husband,
Yeah.
can I say that can I say that President Trump is probably not a Christian because
Yeah.
he hates his enemies,
Right.
Though he confesses that he hates it.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I would probably agree with that.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
you'll have he's a baby Christian, and
Or he's almost there, whatever. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, at least he admits he
based-
struggles with it.
Yep.
And he drew a clear distinction. I found it interesting. He drew a distinction between what he said and he said others. He says the others will probably be mad at me. So he realized that he was out of sync with every single
Right.
speaker there. Okay, so
Yeah.
Okay, but let's get back to this. So she embodies this Christian ideal of love and forgiveness of your enemies. Can the left say that?
Right.
Because I don't hear them saying
Yes.
we can love
Right.
and forgive our enemies. Am I missing that? And I think of Marcusa and
Yeah, I mean, the answer is no. I mean, part of what it's predicated on is that particular classes of people, whatever that, in whatever time in history, whether it's the working class, industrial, or whether it's, gender, race, those people are righteous.
and from a
And
Christian
they have to
perspective,
vindicate.
we can love and forgive our enemies while still opposing them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we're not going to stop opposing what they're
Right.
doing, and we can seek justice, right, from the magistrate.
In public justice, yeah.
But from the left, and I'm using this big,
And you're not
composite-
pejoratively. You're
Yeah, it's
strictly
right.
properly.
Can they seek any other outcome except completely squashing those who oppose them?
Not if they're consistent with, and we're talking about a very strict left, not people who may think that and still be Christian. We're thinking of people who are
Not a Bill Maher.
no,
Democrat.
not a Bill Maher, not
No.
those who
You
admire.
mean a classic
forgiveness.
Democrat?
Yeah.
You know, Bill Maher and Trump were not too far apart at one time.
Don't get me started.
Okay. Well, I want to say,
He's a pro-choice New York Republican or Blue Dog Democrat. That's
They're kind of the same.
I will say what this has done. What this has done to the country, to the world, is there is a very real enemy, and it is not President Trump to the liberals. It is not Marco Rubio. It's not anybody. It's not the shooter. It's the principalities
Right.
and powers that are unseen that we know are real, and that is it. And what really hit home for me was that, what did Frank Turek say? Would you rather have the justice of a holy God or the grace? And everything last night, just the whole night can be summarized with grace. And you guys, there's so much noise out there. There's so much, but
So
but
are
it
you
comes
telling
down
me-
to grace. Period.
Are you saying that Jerry Nadler no
Just his name. I'm sorry.
and Destiny
Oh, we can get into
are
that.
not our true enemies?
Oh, sorry.
To say someone is a true enemy, you have to believe that they are irredeemable. And
Oh gosh, here we go. We're going to lose half our audience now.
so what Destiny has said is so egregious
It's-
to the human
I'm
nature.
sorry, what's Destiny?
So Destiny is this podcaster who said
Okay.
that if you wanted Charlie Kirk to be alive, you shouldn't have voted for Trump, and that the violence will continue until the right learns to basically submit to the left's will. There's a whole lot more to it. That's a very brief summarization, but he was basically saying the right deserve the violence. And
He's the most honest.
he is. But I was reading Thomas Aquinas and about the ends. And the thing is that the people that are carrying out these acts, they don't know what the ends are. The ends have been completely covered in
Over the next
deception.
horizon.
Right. They think it's some sort of right or something like that. The ends is influenced, obviously, by the principalities of darkness, and it's the destruction of the Christian faith. And as Charlie was a Christian, that's one of the reasons why he was targeted. So I'm not going to weigh into what type of martyr he was.
But you get
But
that
you get
was
it.
a part of it.
Right. And Thomas Aquinas had this interesting observation that people who don't know the ends or truly acknowledge the ends, they are no more than irrational beasts. And now I know this seems like harsh language, but this was also a
He was in the 13th century.
Right. He was definitely much before our time. And they are behaving like irrational beasts because no sane person, I've met people who aren't Christians who would, before all of this last time period of Trump, they would say, no, I would never celebrate someone else's death. How grotesque. That's a human life. There was sanctity in humanity just by being made in the image of God, whether they acknowledged it or not. That is now gone. They no longer, through the transhumanism, acknowledge what the image of God is and what humanity is. And so because they act and behave like irrational beasts, they lash out. And how many people did we see celebrating? How many big name, like the liberal girl, she lied, open-faced lied on her podcast. And they're behaving like irrational beasts. So as people who are logical, it's foreign to us. It's alien. And so, back to Bo's question, it's really difficult to have that logical understanding with people who are behaving so irrationally because they just don't understand it.
Well, since I can't have a rational understanding of them, are you telling me that I have to love them?
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
forgive them,
Yes.
even though they haven't repented? Because that's a question, But
Even though they haven't. So
I look at it when I get it. Christians will quibble over that, and my view is I have to be in a forgiving orientation towards them. Yeah, disposition. Because if they don't repent,
God is the judge.
Yeah.
And I think too, with this, we're talking to you guys here, us, them, and left. And I hope our readers understand exactly, that not everyone has reached this point. But without Christianity, without the image of God, it is the right place to go, the wrong place to go, but it is the logical place to go in a particular system. That's what's happened in the past. That's why you have things like the Cultural Revolution. You have the spasmodic acts of violence against the traditions, and the revolution goes on and on and on.
the Summer of Love, over 30 people dead.
Yeah, the BLM riots are a perfect example of that. Why the spasmodic violence? There's a part of it that's deeply ingrained. You need to release, and your rage. The rage is a part of the system, because like Marcuse did say that, you cannot dispassionately describe
these aren't
what
your
happened.
thoughts. These are the thoughts of the people behind these movements.
Yes, so you need to scream, yell, get aggressive. That is a part of how it's remained as just. So anyway, if it wasn't Charlie, it would have been someone else, and it God forbid, it's other people. But we have to recognize the time we live in. And I would say this though, and this is the positive, I think, twist on this as we think about kind of getting towards the end of our podcast here is, there are people that were so much influenced him going back to church, and I know it was really because of the gospel, not just because of becoming a Republican.
Yeah, getting
and you
registered
told me
to vote.
Yeah, it's not registered to vote. That's how it started out. That's how we start out clearly. But tell me, you sent me a link of a guy that really.
Yeah, it was an Uber driver that picked Charlie up, and what was it, 3 months ago or something?
Yeah, 3 months ago. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Phenomenal Catholic.
and he was giving Charlie a hard time, and Charlie was happy to oblige and go back and forth with him, and kept in touch with him. And the guy didn't go to the altar call in the vehicle when he dropped Charlie off. There was no altar call. It was just left at that. And then when he heard that Charlie was assassinated, he just remembered how kind he was, and how he treated him as a fellow human being. He loved him in spite of the opposition.
I think it's really important when we go forward from here. There's going to be a lot of noise. There's going to be a lot of analyzing. There's going to be a lot of opinions. So much is going to happen. But I think what's so important is we realize thousands and thousands and thousands have come to Christ in a matter of 11 days, 12 days. And what a huge, huge blessing that is for us to be alive and I'm so grateful. And it's bittersweet, but I'm so grateful to be alive to see droves of people coming to Christ. I mean, over 100 million streams were recorded. And so I just think
that's a third of the U.S. population.
It's a lot. And so we really just need to rejoice in that and thank God for that. And everything else can be picked apart, which it's not bad to do. But just remembering that Charlie, the main thing was the gospel. And yeah.
Yeah. So I think of Matthew 28, and so I think there's, I don't know. I'm not a prophet or the son of one, but I think we're going to see growth. I think people are going to come to Christ, but with growth comes undergrowth.
Ah,
Well,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
good.
You know, if
Yeah,
you're down in the valley and you've got orchards, you got to keep that undergrowth down so that the real trees can grow and so forth.
And we got to do what Tucker
And
said.
so,
Me.
Matthew 28, make disciples of all nations,
Yeah.
teaching them everything
Right.
that Christ said to say and do. So we're not here to make conservative, liberal, progressive
Amen.
disciples. We're here to make disciples of Christ.
Amen.
And they come. I think of Jude 23 where it says save some, and don't get worried. Don't be worried about that. You're going to get your hands dirty reaching down there to bring those people out of the fire.
Amen.
So
Well,
Yeah.
Charlie wanted
Yep.
to make heaven crowded. I think he did that.
yep.
And I think we can rejoice to that, and that'll be the way that we definitely sum this up. So we're encouraged by that. We know that when you see forgiveness, the gospel preached, people are transformed, and we pray there isn't more violence, but this is a kind of movement, much like the civil rights movement, or even it's something like where peace is what meets attempts of violence, and that's how people are transformed. That's how the church advances. That's how it's spread in the first 3 centuries in particular, and we are heirs to that. So we know he's in heaven. We know that if you're in Christ, we're in Christ, that we'll see him one day, and that nothing can separate us from the love of God.
And the gates of hell.
Will not
Will not
prevail
prevail.
against church. All right, guys.
Love
Leave
you
your
all.
comments.
See you later.
Like, subscribe. Bye.
Smash that like button.